Welcome to Out of the Fog. I'm Melissa Royle. Tonight we've got a special show with an incredible guest, Tessa Virtue. Tessa, along with her ice dancing partner, Scott Moir, have won 3 world championships and are actually the most decorated Olympic figure skaters of all time. Tessa's in town for the Rock the Rink tour, and just before this tour launched, her and Scott announced their retirement from the sport, heartbreaking their legions of fans. Tessa's here to chat with us about her reflections on her 22-year career with Scott Moir, but also what's next for her, and how much she loves Newfoundland and Labrador, of course. So stay tuned, we'll be right back with Tessa Virtue.
You're watching Rogers TV, St. John's.
This will change the world.
What? There's a family in our driveway.
Wake up!
So you feeling what I'm feeling?
Yes!
Now is the time to choose a side.
I think it's all right to express your emotions.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. I'm so excited to introduce you to our next guest. It is Olympic gold medalist, world champion ice dancer, Tessa Virtue.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh no, thanks so much for coming here.
What a pleasure.
So you're here on the Rock the Rink tour. You've been here on tour before, but this is a really special tour. You've been across the country now, and there's a show coming up in St. John's. What can people look forward to seeing that's fun about this show?
Well, it's time to rock the rock.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to be back, and this is sort of the culmination of our 27-city tour and the culmination of our career together. So it's incredibly significant, really meaningful to us, and St. John's has always had a close place in our hearts, a really a special place, and it's a fun tour. It's a great cast. We brought in some of our international friends and favorite skaters. Carolina Costner from Italy, Max and Tatiana, a Russian pair team, Jeremy Abbott from the States, and then of course staples like Caitlin Osmond,
of course, hometown hero.
Own, Elvis Stoico, Patrick Chan. It's a fun-filled night, and hopefully just an entertaining one where people can kind of escape, dance along with us, clap their hands, and enjoy some figure skating.
And I understand there's been like a live band, and there's some kind of extra elements that you don't get in competitions, right?
That's right. It is nice to perform without the pressure of, you know, those rules, limitations, and the notion of being judged. I mean, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves still because we want it to be a good show. But it's important to us that having that carte blanche artistic freedom, that we still take people on a journey and tell a story, and people are able to sit in their seats and feel something with us. So it's been neat for us to put on the entertainer hat instead of just the perfectionist competitor hat.
Just the perfectionist.
Yeah, right. I'm not sure we've managed that balance perfectly yet, but it's a fun show to do, that's for sure, and it's a great way for us to go out.
And you know, you mentioned people in their seats having feelings. I think that people on the ice are going to have a lot of feelings this show too. You mentioned it's your last show together with Scott. Yeah, like what is that like going into this and the build-up and knowing that this in St. John's is going to be your last show together?
I feel so fortunate that we've had this whole tour to really let that information percolate and digest the fact that it is the end, because no other athlete has the freedom to do that, or very few really get to walk away on their own terms in their own way, and I feel very much in control of this. And I think it speaks to how we've really operated our whole career, in that we want to do it in our own way. And I think taking that responsibility and accountability for the show and really curating an exit, it just feels right. The timing feels right. It's emotional, it's bittersweet. It's the end of, you know, a significant part of our lives as partners, but it's also the beginning of something really exciting. I mean, we're both launching ourselves into new ventures and exploring new possibilities and potential outside of skating, and I think after 22 years together, that's refreshing, timely, and inevitable.
So 22 years is a long time, and we all have coworkers, we all work with people in whatever profession or, you know, interest or job we have. But what you guys had is next level, right? Sorry, you're still skating. But what you have is next level, right? You are so interconnected, and the communication between you on ice
is spectacular and no doubt led to your success. So what, could you describe how that relationship kind of develops and how you feel about, your professional relationship with Scott?
It's always been at the core of everything we've done. I think it's been our greatest asset as a team, that connectivity and that communication that we've shared. It's been such a safe place for us. When we're on the ice together, it's as if nothing else exists, and we're able to really find our stride together. And that longevity is also quite rare. We started skating together when we were just 7 and 9, and surely no one saw potential in us back then. But from an early age, we worked with a coach who emphasized things like communication, trust, open dialogue, supportiveness in one another. And I think we cultivated this code of respect because there were certain boundaries we just never crossed. And to this day, we're each other's #1 fan. And I think that positive attribution theory is really at the crux of it all because we've always been there for one another. And it's been a lot of highs and lows, and as one can imagine, a bit of a roller coaster. But even that, I think, adds to our strength, in knowing one another so well.
Sure. And in that relationship, on ice, you are your field is as stylistic as it is technical, right? So part of that's performance-based. And I think because of your achievements in that, I know you've been plagued with the question forever about whether or not you had a relationship. I know that's not true, but did you ever get were you driven nuts by that question, or do you take it as a compliment of we're doing our jobs?
I think the latter. It definitely was a compliment in that we were telling the story, and we really love to get into character, and that's our job. I think,
right.
As a man and a woman on the ice, it's inevitable that it's a love story, and whether that's passionate romance or drama, sadness, whatever it is, the center is that storytelling ability from a man and a woman's perspective.
Yeah, you're actors as much as you are athletes.
Yeah, and I think, there's also a deeper level of something inexplicable between us. There's a bond that even we don't fully understand, and I think that's just because of the sheer amount of time we've had to spend together. It's abnormal. And the work we put into it. We've been doing basically marriage counseling since we were 10 years old. So the fact that we invested so much time and energy every single day into nurturing this partnership, that's what people see. They just don't know it maybe. They see it as chemistry, but what really is there is a really deep-rooted level of care and affection for one another as humans.
And speaking of all that work, I think for a lot of us, it's hard to wrap our heads around just how much work goes into, I guess, physically training to compete at the level you competed at. Is there, does it go in cycles, or do you take breaks, or is it just your whole life has been like trying to perform at peak performance?
It was quite steady for much of our career. We worked with Russian coaches for 10 years, so there was really no taking a break, maybe 1 or 2 weeks a year. And in the end, as mature athletes, when we were a little bit older, we needed to focus on recovery, and I think we just knew better our energy expenditure and what we needed to feel our best. But that was a very sophisticated team of people around us. In the end, those last 2 years, everyone from our mental prep coach to our nutritionist to massage therapist to physio, osteo, I think we were about 15 people on our team, and every month we would sit at a boardroom table, and Scott and I would run a meeting, and we would figure out how to bring out the best out of our team. And yeah, a lot of hard work, absolutely, but we needed to learn to listen to our bodies, and I think as athletes, it's ingrained in us to just sort of like drive yourself into a wall and then crash. Instead, we were able to match subjective and objective data, whether that was with brainwaves or journaling, trainability, measuring. It was kind of crazy. We really took things to an extreme, but I think probably changed the way people train in ice stands.
And coming off such an intense training schedule with such a supportive team around you, all with this big common goal to be the best in the world, which you did, of course, what's it like after that? Like, how do you kind of go on with your life in a new direction after all that?
It was so strange because we competed February 20th, was our free dance of 2018, and basically on the 21st, that whole safety net of a support network was not there anymore. Not because they didn't love us,
it's not personal.
But it was just that we had achieved that goal.
Yep.
And there was such power of that singular focus for all of us, because everything in our lives was filtered through the lens of, will this help me become Olympic champion? And whether it was deciding on what to have for dinner, what vacation to take. You know, the mindset I had walking into the rink, all of it was, can I become Olympic champion? And without that, I sort of felt lost, not unprepared to step into the new roles that were presented to me, but lost in that I felt like suddenly I was trying to balance 100 things instead of just being really good at one and specializing at one thing. And it was liberating and freeing in a lot of ways. I think athletes are often extremists, so the pendulum swung, and anything that made me feel like an athlete I wanted to get away from. But in filling my schedule and trying to stay busy and being so excited about new opportunities, I just don't think I allowed myself the time to process it. And you know, the higher the high, the lower the low, and that crash was something really real, emotionally, mentally, physically. There was a lot to process, and suddenly after Pyeongchang, we're also doing that in the public eye a little bit more.
Big time.
You know, there was a shift there. So I think there was just new pressure that we had to learn to deal with, and luckily we had sort of been through it before. After Sochi, we took a step back. And I think it's just part of any kind of life transition. You know, at the time, I think I thought it was so unique in experiencing these things, but I looked around and realized, you know, people are changing jobs or moving or having families or, you know, so many transitions in one's life, and everyone can relate. You know, athletes are not in a league of their own in any way.
Well, everyone can relate, sure, to change in their lives, but I think there is something, I guess, unique about competing at the highest level at something, all the attention at the Olympics, which all athletes get, but certainly you and Scott got in spades. Like, do you think there's enough kind of supports for people after that, or there could be an opportunity for more?
I think we're working on that. You know, Canada was quick to admit that they were behind even other countries in that transition planning, but we're working on that. I mean, programs like Game Plan are making a big difference in giving athletes opportunities, and whether that's with support systems and therapy sessions, learning how to train as a human instead of just a focused athlete, or offering opportunities at Queen's University for business leadership skills or MBA programs, things like that. I think there are programs in place. It will just be about now teaching athletes how to utilize them, because sometimes we can be lone wolves, and it's hard to ask for help. And again, that's something that everyone struggles with.
And I know you have been really busy since the Olympics. It's interesting to hear you say you kind of went from having this like one big job to a million things that you're trying to balance. You've been, I know, sponsoring and involved with lots of different companies, different charities, and things like that. So, I mean, does that help being busy? And how do you go about kind of selecting what you're going to jump into?
I feel so fortunate. I mean, I've been able to partner with some incredible companies, and I've learned a lot, even from a business standpoint. I mean, it was never about posing with a product. It was really understanding market implementation and strategy for these companies, and more importantly, getting to fully understand their messaging and their value system, because that needed to be in line for me. And it's pretty clear if you look at the people that I've partnered with, there's a common theme. And a lot of it has to do with empowering women and helping other people feel really good in their skin, to use Nivea's tagline. So that came pretty easily. I established a mission statement early on, both personally and professionally, and that helped filter through a lot of questions, you know, because I was able to overlay a company's with my own and see if it's a natural fit. And if I'm lending my name, my voice to something, that's meaningful. And I think, you know, not being oversaturated and really being thoughtful about who I partner with was something that I spent a long time planning for and thinking about. And even philanthropically, like, it's been really special to jump into programs like with Special Olympians. We've been partnering with them for a long time and working together, but including them in the Rock the Rink tour was really important to Scott and me. And
so how does that work on Rock the Rink? How do you include the Special Olympians?
In each city we have a Special Olympian perform, and so they get the spot, and every night it's the biggest ovation, the biggest applause, and on site people can donate to Special Olympics, and that's been, I think, the highlight of the tour without question for us.
I got to go back to the business thing, because, I mean, earlier you mentioned that, you know, you and Scott would be at a boardroom table and kind of, you know, with this team, and you'd be setting this goal, and you're kind of running a business in that way, right? But then and now you're talking about how you have this kind of lens where you're looking at companies you're going to partner with. There's obviously like an entrepreneurial business thing going on in there with you. So is that something that I guess you're going to take the next steps on and get more involved in the business world? What's next for you?
I think so. I mean, as an athlete, I feel like I've always been my own boss.
Yeah.
And Scott and I have been, partners in everything. So that entrepreneurial spirit runs pretty deeply, and I do think that's probably next for me. It would be difficult for me to fit into someone else's corporate structure, and yet, as much as I've learned, I'm so keen to dive more deeply into things, and I would like to do my MBA at Queen's next fall, and
oh, great.
Like to start a company, and I think sort of embrace that new challenge. I need a new task and something to sink my teeth into.
An MBA, I mean, that's MBA from Queen's. That sounds pretty tough, but I know you're up for it because you actually have a degree already.
I'm just trying to finish my last few credits for a psychology degree, so I've been continually doing my undergrad through all of this.
Well, it's incredible you've been able to do an undergrad while
it's been a great balance, and psychology is applicable to any and everything, so I've loved learning about it.
Yeah, it's true. Psychology is definitely applicable to sports and business.
Yes, I always joke that I've had a 22-year case study with Scott in our partnership.
Definitely. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back with Tessa Virtue.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
All right, girls.
Mom, you said it's played again.
Workplace injuries hurt the most at home.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. We're here with Tessa Virtue. Thank you again for being here.
Of course.
We've talked about what's next for you, but of course, I've got here in our Out of the Fog studio, we've got to reflect on this magnificent career you've had together with Scott Moir. I think I can guess what the answer is, but what's the highlight if you look back through all that?
My mind goes two places when you ask that question, because probably what you're hinting at is that a moment in Pyeongchang with our free dance. And that really was, we felt that state of flow that athletes chase in Vancouver, and I think we were striving for that for 8 years and finally got it in Pyeongchang. And the work was done. I mean, we got on the plane to head to Korea, and it was sort of like mission accomplished.
Sure.
We knew that we had set ourselves up in every possible way. There was no stone left unturned. But living that performance and being truly present and so focused, it was the first time I was able to feel momentum in skating.
Really? And that was the first time?
Yeah, I've always envied that in other sports, hockey, tennis. I mean, there's a tangible shift back and forth between competitors. Skating, you just don't get that, especially in ice dance. And we entered our penultimate lift, and I went up and raised my hands to the rafters, and there was an electricity in the building, and I felt, I got chills. And we had 30 seconds left, so I was trying not to get ahead of myself. But I was also able to really take a moment and appreciate it and feel present. And the music ended, and it wouldn't have mattered if the scores put us 10th. I mean, we knew that it was all we could have done in that moment. And we were last to skate. I think there was a 40-minute break between our 5-minute warm-up and our performance. And that leaves a lot of room to question things.
It sounds terrifying.
For the pressure and the stress and the anxiety to mount. And Scott just kept looking at me and saying, this is what we want. This is what we've been asking for. This is exactly the storyline we've dreamed of. And we took the ice terrified, but also kind of feeling unstoppable. And experiencing that together was just so special. But I also think about just the 6 a.m. practices in a grungy hockey rink. And you know.
It's funny you still call them hockey rinks.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Those were my favorite moments because it was just us, and there was that place on the ice where we could say and feel anything. And I think without the crowds, without the judges, without the critics, it was just pure, which, you know, I'll be grateful for those moments.
And in those moments, you know, whether it's, you know, just you two on ice practicing at 6 o'clock in the morning, or whether it's, you know, on the world stage, at what point in there, and what does it feel like to, I guess, know that Canada's gonna be watching and you have all this pressure of the country on you? Does that actually ever enter your mind in the training or the performance process?
It does, and I think we've had different variations of feeling that pressure. We were so young in Vancouver. We were babies and just so innocent and grateful to have a home Olympic Games, but I'm not sure we really realized the magnitude of it. And in Sochi, I think that hit us hard because we felt we had disappointed the country coming home with silver medals. And we were, you know, welcomed back with open arms and so much love and support, but we really felt like we had failed. And in Pyeongchang, representing the country as flag bearers, I think that's when it hit hardest, probably because of just the values we wanted to represent and embody for Canadians. It was so much more than just sport. It was, you know, what do we stand for as a country? And that was really meaningful. I think anytime we heard representing Canada, Tessa Virtue and Scott Moir, we would take a moment and appreciate the fact that, you know, how lucky were we to be on the world stage and representing such an amazing country.
And it's interesting to hear you say that because, I mean, in some ways, and I'm a political geek, the country is quite divided in some ways right now, and it's such a big country with so many interests, and I won't drag you into the political debate, don't worry. But it feels like sport, and in particular, you know, your performance in Pyeongchang was such a unifying experience. Like, I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about it. Like, I mean, everybody felt so Canadian watching you and so proud of you.
I think that's the beauty of sport. I mean, even look at the Raptors and that effect, right? I mean, we were watching that game in Japan, just high-fiving anyone and hugging and feeling connected to the country. And I think that's such a beautiful thing about the Olympics, is that we can, as political as it can be in the lead-up, the moments of pure elation that, you know, we can come together and, as you say, it just unites people. It's really beautiful.
I like how you also just acknowledge that, you know, it's not just about sport, it's about everything, right? When you're representing the country like you did. And you've certainly, I guess, become a role model for not just figure skaters, but lots of, I guess, children and young people who want to achieve their goals. I mean, how does it feel? Does that ever, you internalize that you're a role model, or what kind of messages do you try to get out there for kids?
What's interesting is, as an athlete, I've always had that sort of imposter syndrome, which I think so many people have. But like,
ridiculous.
Someone's going to figure out I've been a fraud for all these years. But I've been given this platform, and that's something that I really don't take lightly. It's a responsibility, and it's also such a privilege. And ice dancing may seem sort of frivolous, but the lessons we learned from being athletes can apply to business, to pursuing passions, goal setting, teamwork. There's so many things that you know, are great takeaways that I think, you know, hopefully other people can draw some inspiration from. And it sounds strange even saying that myself, but I do think that using this platform for good is it's a duty.
And one way that you're using this platform for good, I know you've announced recently, is you're going to be a part of the Team Canada Champion Chats program. So what does that entail?
Well, Classroom Champions is an amazing program, and they've teamed up with Team Canada, but basically they'll be Olympic athlete mentors for schools across this country, and it's accessible to anyone. It's free. There are these curriculums that, based on social, emotional lessons to be learned, and kids will learn about teamwork, goal setting, inclusion, diversity, through the power of sport, but also as it applies to them and whatever resources they have available to them. And it's so beautiful. It's so neat to see the impact that this can have in classrooms across the country. And I just can't wait to be a part of it.
Oh, that's fun. We're just about out of time, but you're in St. John's for Rock the Rink. You mentioned her earlier, so I got to ask about who I thought is our hometown hero, Caitlin Osmond.
Yes.
How great is it to be kind of ending this tour in her, not hometown, she's from Marystown, but her home province in front of all of her hometown fans?
Well, Newfoundland sweetheart. I mean,
Totally.
It's always fun to be on the ice when that sort of roar of applause as she steps out there into the spotlight. It's so special, and we're so proud of her. We're so proud of what she's done for skating, for athletics for the country. I mean, she has represented this province in particular just so beautifully well with class and composure, and she recently announced her retirement. I can't wait to see what she does next.
And I know you, she's from here. I mean, I know there's the whole geographic thing, tours go east to west or vice versa, but I'm going to pretend that Rock the Rink totally intentionally ended here. Yours and Scott's last performance is in St. John's.
Yes, yeah, well that is what we think too, so.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for making time to be here with us and chat on Out of the Fog.
I truly appreciate it. What a pleasure.
Thanks so much. We're right back to finish off the show. Thanks so much.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Thanks for watching Out of the Fog, and thanks so much to Tessa Virtue for making time to stop by our studio and chat with us on such a monumental time, ending the career of ice dancing with Scott Moir, launching into a whole new field of charity and business activities. It's an exciting time, and she manages to be such an engaging, sweet person. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Out of the Fog.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
The president's top guardian angel has fallen.
Can't you see that I'm being set up? We gotta get out of here. I ain't going nowhere. They're gonna try and finish the job. And I'm not gonna stop until I prove who did this.
You can't hide from us, Banning.
Don't worry about finding me. I'll find you.
Jean-Marie! Fire! The neighbor's farm is on fire. It's almost to the road. It's heading for us.
Help me get the animals out of the barn.
The fire's getting closer.
I'm on the horse.
The house is burning.
We gotta get out to the river. Get up.
Can't leave everything. Careful! Don't fall!
Come on, we have to hurry.
Hurry! There's the river. We're going to make it. I can't swim.
Yes, you can.
Hurry! Hurry!
You must get in.
I can't.
Watch out for Spark.
His hair's on fire.
Keep their hair wet.
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
You're watching Rogers TV, St. John's.
Yellow Belly food means fresh food. We source our ingredients locally and prepare them from scratch. Our meat is never frozen. Food's so delicious, we've got good times cornered. Yellow Belly Brewery, a proud sponsor of One Chef, One Critic.
Focused on quality and convenience, there isn't much you won't find at Marie's Mini Mart. Home-style breads, sandwiches, plus a variety of artisan breads and delicious single-serve desserts available exclusively at our Frecker Drive location. Marie's Mini Mart, with 25 locations wherever you go, there we are.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too.
Al-Anon and Alateen can help.
Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.